Hey guys, my name is Neil and welcome to NEEL Workshop Zone. So in this episode, we're going to be continuing the selection control statements. So in our previous episode, we talked about simple if and if else and how they work. So if you haven't checked it out, the link will be in the description. But basically I talked about how if and if else works, and also kind of mentioned that there are two other types of selection controls structures, or as we call them, control flow statements. So now we're going to be talking about nested if and if else. So first let's talk about if else. Now if you watched my previous video, you kind of know what if and what else is, but you kind of never heard of what is elif. Now as the name suggests, elif is basically else plus if. So it can be used multiple times in a code, and it's kind of used to kind of put like a else, but there are multiple of them. So for example, let's take A is equals to 100. If A is equals to 100, print A is 100. Let's put equals to A is 100. Now you can write elif to kind of say A is equals to 150, print A is 150. So right then you can use multiple elifs. You can write another elif saying phase equals to 200, print A is 200. So after all of this, you can at the end you can use else to put something like else print please take the number, or something like that. So that's basically how elif works. It's basically else, but in an if else code, you cannot use else more than once. But by using elif, you can kind of replicate what else is, and that's basically how if else works. Now, if elif else and nested if are pretty similar, but there are some differences which we'll talk about in practical episode. But for now, let's talk about what nested loop is. So, like I said, nested if, or they can be known as nested if else or etc. But first, let's take nested if. So nested if is, as the name suggests, an if inside of an if. So you can use two ifs to kind of check if you can use multiple conditions. So for example, you can say that A is equals to 100. So let's say something like if A is equals to 100, print A is 100. Now over here you can again write if A is equals to 50, print A equals 50, and you can kind of end it like that. Now you can also use nested if else. Now the thing is, like I said in the if else one, in that only one of the code works. So if you have multiple elifs, it only checks which one of it works, and as soon as one of the elif problem works, it immediately prints it out. So it doesn't check every single code to see if it works. So if one of elif works, then it immediately prints the output. Meaning if it can print multiple output. So for example, here you have written A is equals to 100, and so the first one is true. But the second one, if you write something like A is greater than 50, this means the output will be A is 100 or A is greater. So now let's talk about nested if else. So nested if else is also similar to nested if, but you can also write like, after writing this you can write else print this, print Or let's just write something like else is equals to a is not a number, which doesn't work since as you wrote here a is equals to 100. So for example, since two ifs here are correct, it prints both of them. It might seem a little complicated at first, but we'll talk about it in the practical episode. So that is basically how nested if else works. There is also even nested if else, where you can use two if else in a single code, which becomes complicated, but we'll talk about it in the practical episode. But for now, this is basically how nested if else and how basically simple if else works. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. And that's all folks, and see you next one. Bye bye.